I'm from Mexico. Nice meeting you all. I work for game localization, so I am going to introduce you to some of the topics that I'm bringing here. Sharing already, and let's see if we can do so. Yeah, we can do so.
It's
Okay,
working. Fantastic.
it's over there. Yeah. So now you can see over there. Basically, usually when we speak about UX and localization, we only think about doing it like in the language in which we are allocated. So the thing is to have some sort of remindings about the importance of the moving forward, not only for the hegemonic language, which is sometimes the US, and is shifting up to Chinese in these cases, as what we saw on Steam. So uh, basically, the global reach of your game can be in other audiences rather than only the allocated ones from what you are producing or doing. More or less, in the US are around 3 hours of playing time among the players that the country has. But globally, there are a lot of players expecting from your game to having a potential and very good experience through diverse languages, through different cultures, through different experience that are more local. So the challenge is indeed how we connect with them. If they are so diverse right now and they have different needs, even though among the genres, titles, and releases that people are looking forward. So usually we try not only to give the chance to the game to has different kind of languages, but also to have particular experiences lived around the game itself. So for an instance, we are going to take the example of League of Legends and Riot brands. Um, they offer not only to move forward within English or Chinese or traditional language such as fixed, but indeed to have a particular experience worldwide. So this being said, is that through the user experience that we are having and through the localization and adapting this kind of content to global audiences, together we can create a personalized, meaningful experience for players worldwide. So thinking about globally helps out to not only think about the screens, but also to think about the dialogues, the subtitles, and how we are showing up those items on the game. So it's very very important for developers right now to start thinking about how they are going to introduce the games when they reach out like to other audiences, because sometimes when we are under development, we are not thinking about this anymore. What amused me a lot is that sometimes uh, people is thinking about the localization stage just right away when the game is already going to be released, or when the publisher is asking regarding if we have localized some content or how we are tackling to different kind of audiences. So at least something that we need to start thinking about is that some of the platforms in which you are going to develop the game are in need to have this kind of different languages, and to have this immersion helps also to gamer to not being apart from the game. It's true that players know English. It's true that players know how to move forward within the languages that they like. I am a gamer that lived in Mexico and play Dragon Ball Z games in Japanese with guidelines printed. So yeah, this thing that you are moving forward, either seeing the game and reading the dialogue and not having like a proper immersion through the game, can decrease the amount of play hours that you may have during the game itself. So also this helps out to connect particularly within the gamer, because some of the cultural references within or emotional connections that only the language can have can target better within the audiences there. So It's true that whenever you hear your name or the way you like to be assessed in your own languages, you feel something. You have some different way to refer to yourself. And whenever we speak another language, we feel that usually it's another person actually speaking over there. There are some studies regarding that part, and that if you don't have like a full immersion into that language, the player experience is not going to be the same as is going to be in your own language. So taking care of these cultural relevance items, the storytelling, and the emotional connection that you may have helps out a lot. An example of this happened perhaps in games whenever you happen to hear background audio that usually is not being localized or is not being taken care itself properly. So you are playing like, let's say, in Portuguese Brazilian, one game, and all of a sudden you hear background noises that are coming from the English. So the player is like, "Oh, what's happening there? It's another language," and is start thinking about outside the game. So taking care of these nuances of the localization and the user experience helps a lot into that. Um, Games can transcend barriers and unite players worldwide. I like what Shenhua Sang highlights regarding that even games can save lives, fostering joy and connection. He gave a TED talk that it was very, very exciting to hear. And really, really, UX and localization ensures that every player feels the game was made for them. Is an intention of thinking about the other rather than just thinking about, okay, we are going to develop the game from ourselves and for the market here, and it's going to be sales only. No, thinking about the others and their culture and their nuances and their interest can help out to build up their community from there, even though that you are not thinking about releasing right now the game overseas or something like that. Just having that in mind, that one time you might be able to refer to others or to other audiences will fit particularly nice. Breaking the language barriers, having representation, having the same sense of humor than the other countries that we are trying to impact have, can bring together the community itself in order that you can make the audience feel happier and better within the game. Also, taking care of quality translation for dialogues within the lowest level of localization, which is text, or better, having a proper immersion through audio, because right now there's a lot of AIs that indeed can do some sort of services regarding dubbing, but the player feels like, it's a machine speaking, it's a real human. We are not there right now within that, but it helps a lot regarding creating mock-ups on how it can sound or doing pre-translation content in order to see how the player in other countries are going to see it. And same thing happens within the other items, which looking after diverse characters that can relate within different audiences, taking care to not abide the traditionals, because sometimes we can select a character from different kinds of backgrounds that can harsh the country in which we are trying to release a game. And this being said, this helps a lot to relate within the player because we are trying to understand it in this way. We did a few years ago, and I will share this link into the chat later. It was an experience for League of Legends with one character, Jin the Virtuoso, as we localize that experience then, in which the player can relate within the game, not only inside, but always also creating these internal experiences as well. So in the end, basically UX and localization turn games indeed in global phenomenon. You can have like a bigger audience outside the world. Same thing happens with Top Cat in Mexico. Top Cat is a cartoon that didn't work it a lot well in the US market, but when it was localized into Latin American Spanish was like a crazy experience for the people there, and they enjoyed so much this. So let's help you to resonate this experience within different players and think about what's your game story. How will be changing your lives, trying to understand the others, and let's start conversation later. I'll be around in order to share some thoughts. And thank you so much for having me today.